It's easy to show you what's happening around the world. We do the difficult part.
This is a story of a great loot, one where the people of Pakistan are being cheated.
We also tell you why what's happening.
Why would China react so strongly to the downing of a mere balloon?
We look beyond the text, we give you context.
In the world's oldest democracy, people are dying by random guns.
Is China witnessing another Tiananmen moment? People are on the streets calling for President Xi Jinping to step down.
Do leaders mean what they say? Do they ever say what they mean? To find out how real news affects you, your decisions.
For the last 2 decades, Turkey has been collecting earthquake tax. What did the government do with this money? Where was it spent?
Watch Gravitas. We don't impose our views.
Who helped the Taliban repair the sophisticated planes?
That is Gravitas. We let life breathe through our show.
The army chief's
Gravitas, the informed show for an intelligent audience.
Hello and welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Here's a look at what's lined up for you on the show tonight. What does a country take pride in? Honoring its founder, celebrating its armed forces. But what if your mismanagement does not let you do that? What if your country's worsening crisis makes you insult your founder? That is what's happening in Pakistan. The country is neck deep in an economic mess that it is unable to get out of. Plus, the political instability is not helping. You know what these crises have forced the country to do? It has cancelled its military parade, which was to be held on its National Day, as it continues to face rising political instability and a worsening economic crisis. The Pakistan Day celebrates the efforts of the country's founder, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. It commemorates the 1940 Lahore Resolution. Is Pakistan insulting its founder, Jinnah? Is it insulting the father of the nation? Has Jinnah's dream turned into a nightmare? That is our top focus tonight on Gravitas. Also on the show for you tonight, we make you meet the man who is taking on Erdogan in the upcoming elections. Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu may be the next Turkish president. Who is he? What's his story? How are the recent mega earthquakes impacting the upcoming election? India's luxury homes market is seeing a major boom. We get you a Gravitas special report. It is an irony that's hard to miss. After a series of layoffs at different companies over Zoom calls, Zoom has now fired its president. What for? We get you the backstory. The fight for gender equity is a long one. We look at the challenges and the opportunities that lie ahead. A cat killer is on the prowl in Japan. We tell you what the story is all about. Every day brings another startling story from Pakistan, but this one is beyond belief. The military parade, which is the centerpiece of the Pakistan Day celebrations each year, is being cancelled. Pakistan Day is the symbol of Pakistan's national ethos. It's like France cancelling Bastille Day on the 14th of July, or India cancelling the Republic Day on the 26th of January. This is an insult to both the country and to its founder, Muhammad Ali Jinnah. Pakistan celebrates its National Day on the 23rd of March because this is the day on which Jinnah's Muslim League passed the two-nation resolution at its session in Lahore in 1940. Jinnah's ideology created partition and shaped Pakistan's identity. Some Pakistanis call him Quaid-e-Azam, or the great leader. Others call him Baba-e-Qaum, or the father of the nation. But for all these lofty titles that they have given Jinnah, today's Pakistan cannot even respect Jinnah's legacy. And here's why I say this. Pakistan has cancelled a military parade which is held every year on its National Day, a day meant to commemorate the passage of the 1940 Lahore Resolution. I'll tell you why in just a bit. First, you must know what's really happening. For the first time since 1956, there will not be a celebration on National Day, apart from pompous speeches by politicians, of course. But there will be no showcasing of weapons and no air show. The government of Pakistan has cancelled them all. And why is that? Well, there are a host of reasons. Number one being the economic condition. The government says it is doing so because it has run out of money. Or is it because Pakistan has run out of a government? The coalition between Nawaz Sharif's party and the PPP is in as big a shambles as the country's economy. The only news is about instability and near bankruptcy. The official reason number two is political instability. We have been reporting on this for weeks now. The government is on its knees. Political parties are on the streets in major cities. It is dharna versus dharna. Arrest warrants are being issued against Imran Khan, whose only mission is to smash the government, even if it destroys the country. Just to put it very bluntly, even the National Day cannot bring the nation's parties together around the flag. It does not make for good optics at all. Reason number three being terror attacks. They have become a pandemic. In February, Pakistan witnessed 58 terror attacks in 28 days. 6 days into March, it has already seen one more attack. We told you about that. One that claimed the lives of 9 policemen in Balochistan. And at a time like this, is the government saying that it cannot provide security for its own military parade? Is it saying that all political leaders who attend will be at risk from terrorist gunmen? Well, for all you know, terrorists are perhaps waiting for an event like this to strike. The reasons point to a failed state, a state without a government, a state which insults its own founder. Let me take you back in time. The year was 1940. On the 23rd of March that year, Jinnah made a seminal speech. A speech that set out the idea of a separate homeland for Muslims on the subcontinent. Addressing the Lahore conference, he said, and I'm quoting, "It is a dream that the Hindus and Muslims can ever evolve a common nationality. Hindus and Muslims belong to two different religious philosophies, social customs, and literary traditions. They neither intermarry nor eat together, and indeed they belong to two different civilizations which are based mainly on conflicting ideas and conceptions." The majority of Indians did not believe this to be true. They wanted one united country from the Khyber Pass to the Burmese border, with people of all faiths living in harmony. But Jinnah had the support of the colonial British and Pakistan was born. March 23rd came to be commemorated as Pakistan Resolution Day. It was first celebrated in 1956. We are in 2023 now, and Pakistan, created as a dream, has turned into a nightmare. My point is simple. Forget Hindus and India. Pakistan is at war with itself, bleeding from self-inflicted cuts. And if I speak of politics, we see a new Game of Thrones every year. In fact, no Pakistani Prime Minister has been able to complete a full term in office. Shehbaz Sharif will meet the same fate, since he is unlikely to retain office after the next general election. If we speak of terror, it has all but engulfed the country. From Balochistan to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, there are terror attacks almost every week in almost every part of the country. And let's not even talk about the society. It has become more polarized than the politics. The discourse has fallen into the pit. Just this morning, in fact, a group of Hindu students was stopped from celebrating Holi at a university in Lahore. And that is our next story. This story is from the Punjab University, the oldest public university in Pakistan, and apparently one of the most prestigious. Do you know what happens inside this prestigious institute? Let me show you. Have a look at these visuals. They are from Monday morning. What you see is a brawl between minority students and Islamist goons. What was this brawl all about? The festival of Holi. You see, a council of Sindhi students at this university had arranged Holi celebrations for the Hindu students. But the event was attacked by goons from Islami Jamiat-e-Talaba, the largest student organization in Pakistan. We'll tell you about it in just a bit. First, have a look at this video. Videos of this incident have gone viral on social media. Reports say after the attack, when victims protested on the campus, they were apparently thrashed with batons by the university's own guards. This entire episode is tragic. It just shows you the kind of bigotry that prevails in Pakistan. Not just in the country's politics, but also on university campuses, where goons can freely enter the premises of an educational institute and thrash students at whim. The question is, who exactly were these goons? Like I said, they belong to the Islami Jamiat-e-Talaba. This is a radical student organization. Its mission is to preach Islam to students of modern institutions and eliminate non-Islamic elements from their curriculum. This body is said to have links with the Islamic Brotherhood, a transnational Sunni Islamist organization founded in Egypt. The question is, do the authorities in Lahore plan to take action against this outfit? Well, a complaint has been filed, but we doubt if it will achieve much, because this outfit is on the payroll of a number of Pakistani politicians. They use it for political purposes like securing their vote bank. So, besides featuring in a few headlines, we don't expect this incident to cause much of a stir in Pakistan. And in any case, when has Pakistan ever heard the plight of minorities? From the destruction of temples to forced conversion of Hindu girls to targeted attacks against the Hindu community. The lives of minorities in Pakistan has become a living hell. Let me show you some reports. In January 2020, a mob vandalized a temple in Pakistan's Sindh province. They also set fire to Hindu scriptures. And then, in July 2020, an under-construction temple was vandalized in Islamabad. A mob of vandals razed down the temple's walls, demanding the construction be stopped. In August 2020, a pre-partition temple was demolished in Pakistan's Lahore. The temple was reduced to a pile of bricks by the locals on the 16th of August, just a day after India's Independence Day. In December 2020, hundreds of Pakistani extremists burnt and demolished a temple in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. They razed it down with hammers and crude weapons. A case was filed. All the accused were later acquitted. In March 2021 and in March this year, a 100-year-old temple in Rawalpindi was attacked by a group of vandals ahead of a planned operation to clean the area of all encroachments. In August 2021, a temple was desecrated in the Punjab province. Sacred idols of Hindu gods were smashed. Religious posters were burnt in broad daylight. And the entire incident was telecast live on Facebook without any intervention from the police or the local authorities. And then we have forced conversions. This is another sorrow tale. Have a look at this report. It was published by a Pakistani body itself. It says over 1,000 minority girls between the ages 12 to 25 are forcibly converted to Islam in Pakistan every year. And what's worse, after conversion, they are married to the very abductors. I could go on, but you get the point. Pakistan calls itself the land of the pure. But what's happening within the country is the exact opposite. I want to now show you a photo, and I want you to look at it closely. This is Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu. Remember this face because he may be the next Turkish president. He is taking on Erdogan in the upcoming elections. The polls are scheduled for the 14th of May, and Kılıçdaroğlu has been able to secure the opposition's backing. He has the support of 6 Turkish parties.
Üzerinde de bu tabı kalmış bulunuyoruz.
I consider it a duty to announce the decision we have taken following our meetings. We name Mr. Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu as our presidential candidate.
As the heads of the political parties that make up the National Alliance, we have agreed on the roadmap for the transition to the strengthened parliamentary system.
The decision was not as spontaneous as it looks. Far from it. The 6 parties engaged in weeks of discussions and political drama before putting their weight behind the man. A man people outside Turkey don't really know much about. So who really is he? He is the head of Turkey's main opposition party, the Republican People's Party, or the CHP. Kılıçdaroğlu is from Turkey's eastern Tunceli province. He belongs to a minority group called the Alevi. This group follows a faith drawing from Shiite, Muslim, Sufi and Anatolian folk traditions, which often puts them at odds with the Sunni Muslims, who make up the majority of the Turkish population. Alevis, on the other hand, make up 15 to 20% of the population. But this is an association Kılıçdaroğlu does not really like to talk about. The Turkish media calls him Gandhi Kemal. Apparently, he resembles Gandhi. also tries to aid Gandhi, consciously or subconsciously. In 2017, for example, Kılıçdaroğlu launched a 450-kilometer march for justice, asking supporters to walk from Ankara to Istanbul. He is 74. He studied economics in college and was a civil servant before joining politics. He climbed the ranks as a corruption fighter. And today, he is offering to roll back unorthodox economic policies while also making a major shift in foreign policy, including working to quote-unquote complete the accession process for the full membership in the European Union. While Erdogan tried to woo the Muslim countries and present Turkey as the leader of the Muslim world, Kılıçdaroğlu is campaigning on steering Turkey towards Europe. Here's the big question though, what are the chances that he will win? Honestly, it is hard to say. While his party did defeat Erdogan's ruling party in the election for mayor seats in Ankara, Istanbul and some other Turkish cities, it is hard to say how much of this victory can be replicated at a national level. And here's something one cannot afford to forget. Erdogan has this sort of cult personality in Turkey. He is, after all, Turkey's longest serving leader. Erdogan has been in power for 20 years. And that said, his position does look shaky. And why do I say that? One, people are unhappy with the inflation. Two, there is the cost of living crisis. And those struggling to make ends meet can be unsparing at the ballot. And number three, the monster quake. It jolted people's confidence in the government of the country, in Erdogan. Over 45,000 people lost their lives after the 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck Turkey on the 6th of February. Some 264,000 apartments were destroyed. As I speak, Turkey is in a state of despair. And there is no doubt that the tremors of the earthquake will be felt this election. Will it be strong enough to throw out Erdogan from office? The public opinion is that Erdogan did not do enough to ensure that Turkish homes could withstand the earthquakes. While he did make tall promises, Erdogan did not follow them up with delivery, with action. His government's response to the crisis also has been criticized. What works for Kılıçdaroğlu is that he studied economy and now he gets to leverage that and promise Turkey a way out of the economic crisis. Also, anti-incumbency always works in times of disaster. And Erdogan knows this too well. But he appears to be confident about winning the upcoming election, which is the explanation one can possibly have for the fact that the Turkish president ruled out postponing the polls. So what are the chances that Erdogan will win? This question also is hard to answer. Analysts predict a tight race. There are some who have serious doubts about Kılıçdaroğlu's ability to take on Erdogan. There are others who are betting on Erdogan's ability to withstand the political aftermath of the monster earthquake. But there are some analysts who will tell you that a united opposition cannot and should not be taken lightly. But here's one thing that can turn things around for Erdogan. And what is that? Spinning Kılıçdaroğlu's story. Chances are pro-Kurdish party HDP may extend its support to him. HDP party leader Mithat Sankar has said, and I'm quoting, "Our clear expectation is a transition for a strong democracy. If we can agree on fundamental principles, we may support him in the presidential election." The HDP emerged as Turkey's third biggest party in the 2018 election, and it is currently not a part of the opposition alliance. So what happens if it joins the alliance? Kılıçdaroğlu expands his net, yes, but Erdogan gets an opportunity to turn around and point at HDP's alleged ties to the PKK or the Kurdistan Workers' Party, which happens to be an armed Kurdish group, and whip a narrative around how Kılıçdaroğlu has an endorsement from the terrorists. And when that happens, remember, we told you. And our next story is from India. The country is witnessing a new rush. It's for luxury housing. The ultra-rich are queuing up to buy high-priced apartments. On their wish list are high ceilings, multi-level parking, spas, among other high-end demands. And this comes as good news for the real estate industry, whose profits plummeted in recent years. There was an economic slowdown in 2019 when the pandemic came. It further dampened the sentiment in 2020. Developers were forced to put the brakes on new project launches. But the figures are now hinting at a revival. Real estate giant DLF put an upmarket residential project on sale. It was worth $1 billion. It was sold within 72 hours. Godrej Properties is offering $3 million apartments. Clients are being selected by invitation. You see, these properties are made for the richy rich. They cater to the needs of millionaires and billionaires. And despite that, there is a mad rush. High net worth individuals are racing against time to claim the properties. Luxury homes are getting sold out in hours. DLF launched its Arbor project near the national capital. 1,137 apartments were up for grabs. Each was priced at $869,000. This is an extremely high cost for the area. Yet, the houses attracted over 3,000 applications. The booking center was besieged by the people. Meanwhile, Godrej is playing a smart game. It is pushing for exclusivity when it comes to house sales, a factor which is of paramount importance to the elite class, for people who demand exclusivity and restricted access. This is what Godrej sales manager Yuvraj Manchanda said. We don't want to only sell this property, but create a society of the most influential. Millionaires and billionaires will buy this. Godrej set up space in New Delhi's colonial-era Imperial Hotel. Around 160 guests were invited. They were shown 3D models of the project along with videos highlighting the amenities. And by amenities, I mean the luxury ones. This includes heated pools, spas, and nanny on-call services. 17 of 46 flats were sold in the 8-story project. In Mumbai, Suji developers last week published front-page advertisements. They are offering sea view residences starting at $1.7 million. The development will have an amphitheater, landscape gardens, and a sky deck lobby as well. Luxury homes have been all the rage since 2022. Let me just back that up with some figures. In all, a record 65,700 luxury units were sold, with Mumbai, New Delhi and Hyderabad at the spearhead. This was 3 times the sales in 2021. Luxury condominiums accounted for 17% of all housing launches in 2022. They are priced above $183,000. The sales at least touched a 5-year high. Meanwhile, in 2020, only 8,500 luxury homes were sold. Before the pandemic, 18,150 units were sold. This was in 2019. According to Sotheby's, 61% of surveyed high net worth Indians plan to buy luxury real estate this year. And what is causing such a sudden boom? Are people done hiding away their riches? Are they ready to splurge on such luxurious living? The change comes at a peculiar time. 1/3 of the world is expected to dip into recession. The International Monetary Fund has said this at the beginning of this year. So is it the right time for such extravagant spending? There are 1.4 billion people in India. The country has a per capita income of $2,300. But the wealth disparity is apparent. Around 800,000 Indians are millionaires. The number is expected to grow by 77% in the next 3 years. Meaning, by 2026, the country will have 1.4 million millionaires. And this is according to the Knight Frank wealth sizing model. With a growing number of the richy riches, the demand for luxury living is bound to increase. Founders of listed firms, entrepreneurs, lawyers, the elites are looking for larger apartments and better lifestyle. You see, many were confined to their homes during the pandemic. Work from home and hybrid work structures became a thing. These factors, along with rising incomes and India's growing number of the richy rich, have created a hype around luxury living. And it's not only limited to houses. The fever is spreading to the garages as well. Mercedes sales were at a record high last year. The luxury car maker sold 15,822 units. BMW sold 11,268. Luxury goods are in high demand as well. Knight Frank data for 2022 shows 53% of ultra-wealthy individuals splurged on both luxury watches and handbags. The estimates were 41% for watches and 9% for handbags in 2020. Clearly, the elite are spending money like anything. For the time being, while it spells good news for property dealers, car makers and luxury good producers, what does it really mean ahead of a possible recession? Are Indian millionaires going rogue on spending? Women's Day is observed on the 8th of March every year. The day is celebrated as a focal point in the women's rights movement to create awareness among the people, bring attention to issues like gender equality, effects of gender bias, abuse against women. The list goes on and on. But a day before the International Women's Day, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres made a shocking revelation. It is regarding the rising gender inequality in the world. But is gender equality the only thing that women deserve at this hour? Or is there something more? Our next report gets you the complete story.
We're living in the 21st century. By now, the world was supposed to be a better place to live in, one where everyone gets equal chance and opportunity to grow. But not much has changed in the way society thinks. Equality is still a myth and discrimination is still prevalent. Historically, across the globe, women have suffered huge ill treatment to be at par with their opposite gender. Although with the passage of time, the situation was improving for women, with people voicing and fighting for their rights, creating awareness among citizens. But despite such efforts, according to the United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres, decades of advances on women's rights are being wound back. The world is now hundreds of years away from achieving gender equality. Speaking to the United Nations Commission on the Status of Women, Antonio Guterres said gender equality is vanishing before our eyes. He said we are 3 centuries away from achieving gender equality, citing high rates of maternal mortality, girls being forced into early marriage, and girls being kidnapped and assaulted for attending school as evidence. The UN chief believes the hope of achieving gender equality is growing more distant. If we look around the world, we can see various recent instances where women have been robbed of their rights and deserved opportunities. In Taliban-ruled Afghanistan, women and girls have been erased from public life. The regime has barred women and girls from universities and some schools, invalidated thousands of divorces, forcing women to go back and live with their abusive partners. While in Iran, there was a brutal crackdown on protests that broke out in mid-September following the death of 22-year-old Mahsa Amini, who was in police custody after she allegedly violated the country's conservative dress code for women. Or even in the most developed country of the world, the United States of America, where women's sexual and reproductive rights are being rolled back since the overturning of the landmark 1973 Roe v. Wade ruling, where women had the constitutional right to choose whether to have an abortion or not. So now the question arises, what can you and I do to tackle this centuries-long battle? Well, to achieve gender equality, the most important thing which we can do as a society is ensure equal access to education, empower women in the workplace. As in most workplaces, there are more men than women in high-level positions. The gender pay gap also persists in many places. where men are generally paid more than their female counterparts for the same job profile. While another thing which needs to be done is to ensure the strengthening of legal rights. Domestic violence is still prevalent in many parts of the world. The World Health Organization estimates 1 in 3 of all women are subject to domestic violence at some point in their life. Meanwhile, many women have also experienced sexual harassment at some point in their lives. But gender equality is not an end in itself. It is an outcome of multiple forces working in unison. One of the prerequisites is gender equity. In other words, if gender equality is the end, gender equity is the means to it. But what does gender equity exactly mean? It is the fairness of treatment for women and men according to their respective needs. This may include equal treatment or treatment that is different but is considered equivalent in terms of rights, benefits, obligations and opportunities. When we talk about opportunity, we're talking about ensuring opportunity is not limited simply on the basis of gender. We're talking about correcting for gender biases so that economic outcomes improve for all. Basically, it strives to bring all the genders to an equal playing field, to facilitate equal opportunities for all genders, to overcome their historical and social disadvantages by ensuring fairness and justice in the distribution of resources to all genders.
Now, if irony had a face, it would look something like this. Meet Greg Tomb. He was until recently the president of Zoom. You know, the video conferencing platform. Tomb was its president. They fired him, terminated his employment without cause. And why am I calling him the face of irony? Because ever since the Wuhan virus pandemic started, we've heard about so many stories of people being fired over Zoom calls. This man, Vishal Garg, is the poster boy of Zoom layoffs. He managed to fire 900 employees over an infamous Zoom meeting. All 900 of those employees were invited to a Zoom meeting, and Garg told them, if you are on this call, you are part of the unlucky group being laid off. Adding, your employment here is terminated, effective immediately. Garg is the CEO of unicorn mortgage lender startup Better.com. It's a pity he could not come up with a better, more polite way to deliver this news to the employees. And there are many like Garg who have fired people over Zoom calls. In 2022, British shipping company P&O Ferries probably got inspired by Garg and let go of 800 employees over a video call, 800 of them. The pandemic made virtual layoffs the new normal, unfortunately. And it's hardly a surprise. You would agree with me that it is easier to have difficult conversations over the phone or with a screen in between than in person. But does that make virtual layoffs the right thing to do? Well, that's a debate for another day. The fact today is that Zoom has become a medium of choice for cutting jobs, and it becomes an irony when the platform's president suddenly finds himself on the receiving end of the job cuts. Reports say Tomb was fired abruptly. He was hired only in June 2022. Everything seemed nice and rosy. Tomb attended the World Economic Forum in Davos in January. He expressed confidence in Zoom's growth despite people going back. So what happened between January and now? No one really knows. The sense of cluelessness is pretty similar to what the thousands felt who were fired over Zoom. No space for a one-on-one, in-person interaction. Little space for questions. Just a cold turkey termination of employment. These layoffs, virtual and otherwise, continue as I speak. And I don't know how many of you saw the headlines today. Meta is firing thousands of employees this week. The parent company of Instagram, Facebook, and WhatsApp has already let go of many of its workers. I'm talking as many as 11,000 workers. In the first 7 days of this month alone, several well-known companies have let go of their workers. Flipkart, Fitter, and Upgrad in India, Loft, Airbnb, which by the way has let go of 30% of its recruiting staff. Irony much? And then you have Masterclass, CNET, Truckstop.com, ThoughtWorks, iFood, which also laid off workers since a while now. And these companies are just few of the many. How many, you are asking? Have a look at this particular website. It tracks layoffs and it already has 27 entries for the month of March. What date is it again? Just the 7th of March. And as I speak, bodies are piling up in the tech battlefield, with more and more people suddenly finding themselves without a job, without a source of income, and without means to support themselves and their families. Why is this happening? Let's just come back to Zoom. The company recently fired 1,300 employees. That's 15% of its workforce. Zoom's CEO shot a company-wide email. In it, WION took responsibility for the mass firing. But what exactly forced the company to take that step? Zoom became a household name at the start of the pandemic because people needed to work remotely, attend classes, attend social events online. Courts needed to hold hearings remotely as well. And Zoom responded to this rise in demand and tripled its employee strength. But then the world opened up again. People went back to the offices. Students went back to in-person learning, and social gatherings went back to normal. It's not like Zoom has been forgotten altogether. Meetings still happen there, so do catch-ups, but it's fair to say it's nothing like before. The demand has fallen. What's the result? Mass layoffs. This seems to be the story across much of the tech sector. It hired en masse in the beginning of the pandemic, and now it is firing en masse. Whatever happened to sustainable hiring? Let me now ask you a question. Are you a cat person? And if yes, you will find this story particularly disturbing. A serial cat killer is on the loose in Greater Tokyo. Several mutilated cat carcasses have been found. Residents are disturbed and scared. Local authorities have bolstered security measures. Would the killer suffice with cats? Could humans be next on the hit list? Well, let's see. The cat killings have been gruesome. On Sunday, a partially buried cat was found. Its paws and head were missing. Its guts were found hours later on a nearby road. Earlier in February, police found a severed cat jaw in a schoolyard. It was found hanging from the playground bars with a string. Police are currently investigating the cat murders as violation of Japan's animal protection law. Killing or harming an animal is punishable in the country. The culprit could be sentenced to 5 years in prison or fined up to $36,600. But the murderer does not seem to be scared. These cat killings have shocked residents. Animal rights activists are alarmed. This is not the first time Saitama City has witnessed such murders, by the way. 6 years ago, a man notoriously killed and tortured more than a dozen cats. And as if that was not enough, he posted the gruesome videos online. He was later sentenced to 22 months in prison. Another such incident happened in 1997. A 14-year-old boy in Kobe Prefecture dismembered cats' bodies. But he did not stop there. He went on to kill an 11-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl. You see, the country has relatively low violent crime rates. Children routinely ride subways alone. According to Statista, only 874 homicides were recorded in Japan in 2021. The figure, just for the sake of comparison, was close to 23,000 for the United States. The gory murders have left Japan uneasy. And what is happening now seems like a stark reminder of the incident. Now, another killer is slaying cats, not just killing, but mutilating their bodies and leaving them out in the open. In children's playgrounds, in areas that are under CCTV surveillance. Experts have labeled this a purely evil act. The cat murders have sent alarm bells ringing. Could children be the next targets? Educational board has come under stress. Local officials have increased patrolling in areas where the dead cats were found. They are escorting students home. Children have been asked to walk in large groups. Animal activists are calling for better background checks for potential pet owners as well. They say animals should not be treated as toys. Animal abuse has been on the rise in Japan. In 2021, police made 170 arrests for suspected animal abuse. And that's the highest figure since records started in 2010. The situation is concerning. It seems cats don't have 9 lives in Japan. Let's now tell you what else made news around the world. Time for Gravitas Global Headlines.
France is witnessing fresh strikes and protests against a controversial pensions reform that would push back the retirement age for millions. Unions have vowed to bring the country to a standstill over the proposed changes, which include raising the minimum retirement age to 64 from 62 and increasing the number of years people have to make contributions for a full pension. Meta is planning a fresh round of layoffs and will be cutting thousands of employees. The layoffs could happen this week. This comes only a few months after the Facebook parent reduced over 11,000 people from its workforce. As the Ukrainian forces continue to hold on to the besieged city of Bakhmut, Kiev has now vowed that it will not let go of the crucial city amid intense Russian attacks. The Ukrainian president asked the army to find forces to strengthen the defenses of the besieged city. A Ukrainian commander in Bakhmut described the battles as quote-unquote utter hell. Sri Lanka's president says that China has agreed to restructure its loans to the bankrupt island nation, clearing the final obstacle to an International Monetary Fund bailout package. US Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin is on an unannounced visit to Iraq. Officials say the visit is aimed at showing Washington's commitment to military presence in Iraq, ahead of the 20-year anniversary of the US-led invasion that toppled Saddam Hussein. Japan destroys a new medium-lift rocket. It launched into space on Tuesday after the vehicle's second-stage engine fails to ignite, in a blow to its efforts to expand access to space. Mexico deployed soldiers to the eastern Mexican border town of Matamoros. The deployment was made after 4 US citizens were shot at by gunmen and then kidnapped shortly after crossing the border. Mexican and US authorities said that they were working to locate the 4 Americans. 2 of the 4 Americans kidnapped by armed men in Mexico are dead and 2 are still alive. Mexican authorities also announced that a special task force has been formed to search for the abducted Americans. At least 15 killed, dozens still missing after massive landslides on a far-flung island in Indonesia. Poor weather and downed communication lines have complicated rescue efforts. UEFA will refund Liverpool fans who had tickets for the 2022 Champions League final in Paris. This follows a recent independent report that found the European football governing body bears primary responsibility for the chaotic scenes before the clash. Fans were sprayed with tear gas outside the stadium as kick-off was delayed by 36 minutes. One of the brightest young stars of the NBA Jamorant is under police investigation. The 23-year-old Memphis Grizzlies guard displayed a gun during an Instagram live session. Although it is not illegal to carry a firearm in Colorado, it is against the law to do so while being under the influence of alcohol.
On that note, it's a wrap on this edition of Gravitas tonight. We're leaving you with Gravitas images. Thanks very much for watching.
There you go.
जो मैला ना हो रंगों में वो क्या बचपन है, जो झूमे ना उमंगों में वो क्या बचपन है। बचपन जिंदगी में सिर्फ एक बार आता है, उसे खुल के जीने दो, दाग लगने दो। दीवारों पर लगाए ना बर्जर इजी क्लीन पेंट, इसके क्रॉस लिंकिंग पॉलीमर से नो दाग नो धब्बा, ओनली ब्यूटीफुल वॉल्स। बचपन जिंदगी में सिर्फ एक बार आता है, उसे खुल के जीने दो, दाग लगने दो। दीवारों पर लगाए ना बर्जर इजी क्लीन पेंट, नो दाग नो धब्बा, ओनली ब्यूटीफुल वॉल्स।
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at yo1.com.
Stay connected with the world through WION. Like the page on Facebook. Follow us on Twitter for new alerts. Instagram for videos and images, and the website for the latest news, views, and analysis. WIONews.com. World is one.